Okay. 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 Parshas Toldot, Perek Chav Zayin, Sukim Aleph through Mem. The bracha Yaakov receives, the bracha Esav receives. Both receive a bracha. What is the difference between the brachos? Let's take a look at the story of Yaakov with Rivka. Rivka engineering that Yaakov receives the bracha. Okay, that is what we're going to learn. Good morning. You have a chumash? Perek Chav Zayin, Perek Aleph. Pasuk Aleph, page 132. Everybody has it? Okay, let's go. Vayihi ki zaken Yitzchak vatichieno einov meiraos. And Yitzchak was an old man and his eyes were poor, which is important to this whole story, by the way. The Rav doesn't talk about that. You don't have to have Rav Soloveitchik talking about that. We understand that that's the foreshadowing to the whole story. How does Yitzchak make this mistake? We're told right away, Yitzchak is not able to see clearly. It means more than just physical eyesight here. He doesn't see the story in front of him unfolding. He misjudges Esav, and he misjudges Yaakov at the same time. We'll talk about that. So he has poor eyesight. Esav beno hagadol v'yomer yilov b'ni v'yomer yilov hineni. So he turns to his older son, Esav, and he says, my son, and Esav says, yes, I'm here. Whatever you want, Abba. Vayomer hineno zokanti lo yodati yom mosi. I'm an older man. I don't know the day that I'm going to die. V'ato sono chilecho telecho v'kashtecho v'tzei hasodeh v'tsudoli sayid. He says, do this. Sharpen, if you will, your gear, your sword, and your bow, and go out into the field and hunt game for me. I want you to hunt food. I want you to bring back. I want you to bring the food I really enjoy. Leave and you bring it and I'll eat it. I will give you a bracha in response, and then I will die. Rivka Shamas b'daber Yitzchak el Esav beno. Rivka overhears this whole conversation of a father to the son. Vayelech Esav asadeh latzud sayid lahavi, and Esav goes out to do his father's command and to hunt the food and to bring it to him. Rivka amra el Yaakov. Now, next story, if you will. At the same time, right? Rivka overhears it. Rivka now acts. V'Rivka amra el Yaakov ben Lemor. Rivka goes to her other son, the younger one, and she says the following: Hey, shamati es avicha medaber el Esav achicha lemor. I overheard what your dad said to your brother Esav. Havi ali tzayid. He said to him, "Go out and hunt for me food. And I make the food that I enjoy and bring it. And in response, I will then bless you before God, and then I will die." Now listen to the words here. Now, this is Rivka commanding Yaakov, Beni, my son, Shma bikoli. I want you to pay close attention to what I'm saying, she says to him. La'asher ani mitzavah osach. I'm now going to command you exactly. I have a strategy. That's what she's saying to him. I have a strategy, and you're going to follow my strategy. Interesting, right? How does she command him? We'll come back to that. Lech no el hatzon. These few words Rav Soloveitchik thinks is the most important 4 words in the entire story. Lech no el hatzon. She's commanding who to go? She's commanding Yaakov to go out and hunt. Lech no el hatzon. Go out into the field and v'kachli misham shnei gidoi izin tovim. I want you to bring 2. I want you to bring 2, right? 2 lambs. I want you to bring for your father. And she's going to participate, of course. She's going to cook them, right? She's going to make it. I'll prepare everything. You'll bring it to Abba. Okay? You stop for 2 seconds. Of course, what jumps at you? What does she need? Shnei gidi izin. Why does she need 2? Was he commanded to take 2? Interesting, right? Yaakov didn't say, Yitzchak didn't say to Esav, bring me shnei gedi izim. She's now changing the the groundwork, right? Okay, we'll talk about that. And you'll get the bracha before your father dies. And Yaakov responds as exactly what Rivka thought he was going to respond, by the way. She knows her son Yaakov very well. Okay, Yaakov says to his mom, I can't replace my brother. My brother is a hairy guy. I'm smooth. My dad is Abba is going to feel me. He's going to see I'm smooth. He knows his son Esav is hairy. I'm going to end up getting cursed. My father will figure out what's going on. It's not going to turn into a bracha. It's going to turn into a curse. An interesting response to her. She says, "Don't worry about any curse. I will absorb. I will be the buffer for any curse. I'm begging you, my son. Listen to my strategy. The leich kach li. Go and do what I told you. Go and get the sheep, right? He agrees finally, right? He goes and he brings to his mother, and his mother Rivka makes all the food as the way she knows her husband Yitzchak likes it, like he loves it. Now she does something else. She's a strategist here. She has this all planned, right? She takes the clothing that Esav has left her. Esav has left his beautiful garments. We had Colonel Goldstein here this Shabbos. So Colonel Goldstein, we saw him in his nice uniform. There are two different uniforms that a soldier wears. He wears the regular uniform like all soldiers they're not very impressive. They're what we see all the time. Nothing impressive. He came to shul Shabbos morning, and what I overheard, one said, it's the bird uniform. You look like a bird, but what, all the medals and all the insignia, and he looked, wow, it was very impressive. And that's why he dressed that way. He was coming to shul and he wanted to impress, so what am I saying? The uniform that Esav owned, his expensive clothing, he left by his mother. So he trusts his mother. And she takes it out of the closet and she gives it to Yaakov. With the skins of the goat kids, she covered his arms, and his smooth skin is now totally camouflaged. Correct? Okay, that's how she already figured out the problem of the smooth versus the hairy. Okay? And she hands over the food and she says, my son, you're going in. And he goes in and his father says, who are you? His father is sensing, if you're reading between the lines, his father schmecks something here. He smells something. It's nothing right. So he asks, who are you? Yaakov answers, Anochi. This is a very famous line that Chazal say, Anochi, am I? Esav b'chorecha. Esav is your oldest son. If you read it that way, right? He didn't lie. Okay, that's the way Chazal wanted to say. Anochi, Esav b'chorecha. Am I? Esav is your oldest. But of course, that's not the simple reading. Anochi Esav b'chorecha. I'm Esav, your oldest. That's the way it should be read. Okay, but anyhow, I did exactly as you commanded. Kumna, please rise, and eat, please, that which I prepared for you as you requested, and give me my bracha. Wow, you did this very quickly. How did you accomplish this so far? Vayomer, and he answers, Hashem made it all happen. So immediately antennas go up as well. That's not the way Esav talks. Esav doesn't talk, God, help me. But okay. Now Yitzchak says, smelling a rat in the room, right? So because he has poor eyesight, he says, come close. I'm going to feel you. I'm going to touch you. I'm going to figure out, is this Esav or not? Now, I wonder this pasuk, do you think he's saying this out loud, or is he saying this to himself? The Torah doesn't really tell you. It might very well be we're the reader inside the head of Yitzchak, right? This is what's going on. Lav Dafka, does he utter these words to Yaakov? But this is certainly what Yitzchak is thinking. And he comes over and he feels him, right? He touches him. He says, the voice, it sure doesn't sound like my Esav. Sure sounds like Yaakov. You're talking like Yaakov, but your hands are the hands of the hands. He didn't know really that who was standing in front of him. In other words, he's saying, so he gave him the bracha. And so, Pasuk Chavdale 24, he said, you are indeed my son Esav. And he said, I am. So now, Pasuk Chafei, so he says, serve me and let me eat of my son's game that my soul may bless you. I'm going to eat, help me eat. And so he served him, he gave him, he brought him wine as well. Okay? I love Yitzchak Aviv. And now his father Yitzchak said to him, Gishana ushikali b'ni. If you please, kiss me, my son. He smells him also. He has, there's an odor that he knows that Esav has. He's a man of the field, so he knows that he's. 1 second, somebody else wants to join. Oops. Okay. And he says, come close, and he smells and he says, yeah. And you see the fragrance of my son is like the fragrance of the field which Hashem had blessed. So now he gets the bracha. And may you give you of the dew of the heavens and of the fatness of the earth and abundant grain and wine. Is the tefillah that we say on Saturday night. Right after V'hinam, it's called Yitein Lecha. And Balabatim, Rabbi Muskin, why are we saying V'yitein Lecha? First of all, the Tur Shulchan Aruch says you're supposed to say it on Motzei Shabbos. A lot of the Hasidim didn't say it in Shul; they would say it by Havdalah. They would say when they're singing by Havdalah, they would say, "No, the minhag is to say V'yitein Lecha." And then I told Balabatim, "What are you against V'yitein Lecha? It's the tefillah parnasa. It's the tefillah of being successful in business. You don't want to be successful in business. It is the tefillah of parnasa, right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is promising, he thinks it's Esav, but it's Yaakov here, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give you what? The dew of the heavens and the fatness of the earth and the abundant grain and wine. That's parnasa. Okay. And by the way, we quote these psukim, right? In V'yitein Lecha. Yavdu chamim v'yishtachavu l'chol umim havei gevir la'achecha v'yishtachavu l'chol b'nei yimecha orecha oror mevarechecha baruch. People will serve you. Regimes will prostrate themselves to you. Be Lord to your kinsmen, and your mother's sons will prostrate themselves to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. Couldn't need a better bracha these days than that, right? Those who are on our side, let them be blessed. Those who are opposed to us and have a double standard for Israel, may they be cursed. And we can all answer amen to that one. I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. This morning, read the Wall Street Journal's editorial, and they note it. It's a double standard, and it's outright absurd. Absurd. America is preaching to Israel now, not to bomb that hospital, but you did it in Iraq. You did the same thing in Iraq when you knew that it was filled with ISIS, right. And it was documented, and they quote the exact time and day, and you did it. Yeah, and human rights, yeah, and they kept quiet. Human Rights Watch then kept quiet. Now Israel should do it. Israel's held to a different standard, right? Always. This is a fascinating situation. Here, Yitzchak finishes the bracha. Yaakov quickly gets out. It's like swinging doors. He goes out one door, and Esav comes in the other door, and neither see the other. Thank God. Okay, Esav's now bringing that which his father asked for. He's bringing also the good food. He brings it to his father. Dad, get up and eat so you can give me the bracha. And Yitzchak says, who in the world are you? I thought you were just here. I'm your oldest son. What are you talking about? This is a very important pasuk. What happened here we'll talk about, because it can be interpreted two different ways. But how does he translate it here? Yitzchak trembled very greatly with perplexity, right? Vayomer, and he says, who then was the one who brought me the food and I just ate? He realizes something happens, but then what are the words? And now Yitzchak stops for half a second. He says, Gam Baruch Yeh. That bracha should stay. That bracha should stay. Yitzchak says, the bracha I gave to the imposter, that bracha should stay. He realizes, obviously, at that moment, Yaakov had taken the bracha. Gam Baruch Yeh. He should also have that bracha. When Esav hears his father's words, he screams out a tremendous cry. He says, Dad, you got to give me a bracha. But he said, your brother came in cleverness and took your blessing. And he says, Esav responds, it is because his name is Yaakov. Yaakov means he outwitted me 2 times. First, he took my birthright at the very beginning of the parsha. Now he takes away my blessing. And then he said, have you not reserved the blessing for me? Abba, Yaakov tricked me twice, but now you got to give me a bracha. And he said, behold, the Lord, I have made you over him, and all his kin have I given him as servants with grain and with wine have I supported him, and for you what can I do, my son? Esav says, Dad, you got to have another bracha for me. And he cries. And Yitzchak answers, he says to him, okay, I'm going to give you a bracha too. Pasuk 39, behold, the fatness of the earth shall be your dwelling, and the dew of the heavens from above. You're going to be blessed also with parnasa. By your sword you shall live, but your brother you shall serve. You're going to serve. You're going to have a sword, but your brother's you're going to still serve him. Yet it shall be that when you are aggrieved, you may cast off his yoke from your neck. In his heart, Esav said he takes the bracha, and he says, I'm going to wait till Dad dies, and then I'm going to knock off Yaakov. I'm going to take care of Yaakov. You got Rivka. And Rivka overheard what her oldest son had planned to do, namely kill her younger son, and she called Yaakov and she says, Yaakov, your brother wants to kill you. He found out what happened. Once again, she says to him, I got a strategy. You're to listen. You are to go run to my brother Lavan in Haran. Then you will live for a number of days, meaning a long time, until your brother's anger subsides. There'll become a day when he'll forget it, and I'll summons you home. Of course, this is the way it must be, because I don't plan on mourning both of you the same day. In other words, he would kill you and the day he kills you, I would abandon him as a son. No son is going to kill the other son. And she turns to Rivka turns to her husband Yitzchak, and he says, "I'm disgusted with my life on account of the daughters of Bnei Chet. If Yaakov takes a wife of the daughters of Bnei Chet, what will my life be to me?" And that's the end of the story. Okay, and then it finishes the story. Okay, let's go back. That's the story. You have to know the text before we can study it. So,
can I interrupting before you start, Rabbi? There is a word here that I don't understand what it's mean, mitnachem. It says it's when it pasuk men gimel, when that men gimel, it says when she called Yaakov, that it said she told him what it's his friend, but it said mitnachem. The word mitnachem, he should have said mitkonen or mashu, because mitnachem it's a word of nechama.
right.
Meaning his anger, he's telling himself, okay, don't worry, I'll get back. Menachem et atzmo, like Takoes, go ma, he's kind of telling to himself to calm himself down.
I agree.
Okay.
That's yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, let's
So,
begin.
thank you.
Okay, let's see what Rav Soloveitchik has to say. And once again, you're going to see the brilliance of the Rav and how he interprets the psukim.
I just want to say one thing though, in my mind, I'm thinking Yaakov has so many children, he finds a bracha for each one of them. And Yitzchak had planned just one bracha for one son,
Because-
his favorite son.
Because what's happening here? Who is going to be the next of the Avos? There was a tradition Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov all had, that they were going to be the three pillars of our faith, the forefathers, right? So Avraham was the first one, Yitzchak's the second one. Now Yitzchak is burdened to decide who's going to be the one who's going to build the future of our people. Is it Esav? Is it Yaakov? I have to choose. That's what this bracha is all about. This bracha is who's the next in the Avos. And that is what's happening. And Yitzchak thinks incorrectly because he doesn't see clearly. More than just physical, he's not seeing clearly. He doesn't understand what's in front of him. He sees an Esav that's charismatic, an Esav that's dynamic, an Esav that's a builder, that's a creative force of nature. And he thinks, oh, that's what we need. We have Avram, he's chesed. We have Yitzchak, he's gvura, right? Internally strong. We need now, who's going to build the people? Who's going to build the nation? We need a creative visionary who's going to go out in the world and implement all of this. Who's going to do that? A Yoshev Ohalim? A guy who sits in the Beis Medrash and learns Gemara? Is that the guy who's going to do it? That doesn't happen. With all due respect to all of those who, there was a big machlokas, I understand, between the Aguda in America and the Aguda in Israel. The Aguda, Moetzes Gedolei HaTorah in America, said they should join the rally yesterday in Yerushalayim, in Washington. I believe that's what happened. The Agudas did join. They said, listen, it's important. They realized because the rabbis here, the Moetzes Gedolei, the Aguda rabbis, see what's going on. In the street is very important in this whole battle. There are two different battles happening. There's the battle of the PR and there's the battle of the battle, right? And suddenly the Aguda, Moetzes Gedolei HaTorah, were Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael, said, no, they shouldn't go. That's Bittul Zman, that's Bittul Torah, that they should stay and learn. There are times when you gotta pick up, you gotta close the Beis Medrash. You do. We don't want to, but if you don't, you're going to be in trouble. You gotta know how to deal with it. Chazal talked about, in one hand the Gemara, and the other hand the knife, the weapon, right? The sword. You carry both, and it was a big machlokas here. Anyhow, let's go back. When I read this story, I see what's happening to us on the battlefield very clearly. So let's see. The Rav wants to understand, why was Rivka so determined? This is the observation, the opening observation, right? We always share with an overview. What is the Rav's interest in these psukim that we just read? Remember, the Rav is not Rashi. He's not reading every pasuk and analyzing every pasuk for its nuance. That's not what the Rav is doing. The Rav wants to understand a gestalt. What's the gestalt here? Rivka was so determined that Yaakov get the bracha and not Esav. What motivates Rivka? That's question one. Then he probes the message that Rivka gives Yaakov. Rivka is the strategist, right? And she says things to Yaakov that is going to guide him not only now, while he takes the bracha away from Esav. It's going to guide him for the rest of his life. And finally, the Rav wants to know, both of them do get a bracha. Is there a difference between the two brachos? And the Rav notes 1,000%. And you gotta read carefully. So again, the three things that the Rav is interested in this story is what's motivating Rivka to drive herself crazy to take that bracha and get it to Yaakov versus Esav. Number two, what messages is she teaching Yaakov for a lifetime? Not only now, but for a lifetime. How are you to conduct your life? Rivka is acting like a mother should act. She's an educator par excellence, by the way. Rivka, if we had to paint a picture of Rivka, Rivka is a teacher. She's a student of life. Remember where Rivka comes from. Rivka comes from a pagan background. She's, the daughter of Besuel, the sister of Lavan, the ultimate in paganism. And she overcame it. She rejected it. She knows what to teach. She says, I can tell you a little about the field. I know the field. I know the street. I know it very well. I grew up in it. And I know how to tame it. Yaakov, I'm going to teach you. So she's an excellent strategist, but she's an excellent teacher. And finally, we want to know, Yaakov gets a bracha. Esav gets a bracha. Two different brachos, if you pay close attention. Okay, so let's start. The first pasuk, the Rav notes, takes us to pasuk ches on page 134. Va'ato b'ni shema b'koli la'asher ani mitzava osach. Right? What are those words? Now, my son, listen to me. I got a strategy. I want you to follow exactly what I'm doing. What's happening in this pasuk? These words don't just inform us that Rivka instructed Yaakov to listen to her strategy, right? And how to take the bracha away, but rather it reflects the fact that Rivka understood something very well. Who's she talking to in this pasuk? Yaakov. Va'ata b'ni shema b'koli. Yeah, Yaakov was a good boy. He would listen to his mother. She's commanding him now. It's a different level of conversation. Why? Because she knew Yaakov very well. She knew Yaakov would reject this plan. This was not going to sit well with Yaakov. Yaakov is an ish yoshev olim. Yaakov doesn't want what? Emes liYaakov. Titen emes liYaakov. Correct. Yaakov is not interested in. This is not his personality of taking something away from someone else. It wasn't meant for me. Yitzchak doesn't want to give it to me. Abba doesn't want to give it to me. It's not for me. And Rivka knows that. Rivka knows the players involved. Rivka, in other words, versus her husband, has 20/20 vision. She says everything, she sees everything so clearly, so profoundly that her husband doesn't see. And that's why she says to her, Yaakov, I know you're not going to like this. That's a brilliant strategy, right? Right away, what do? You remove any problem of disagreement. Yaakov, I know you're going to disagree with me. I know you're not going to like this. I know that. But I'm telling you, I got a strategy. Listen to me to the end, and then you'll figure out I'm right. Exactly what it is. It's Rivka is the only one who realizes, the Rav points out, Va'ato b'ni shema b'koli. This pasuk is a crucial pasuk because it presents Rivka as the only one who realizes the high stakes that is involved at this moment. She's the one who's going to change history. Rivka becomes in control of history. She's not sitting back and letting history work on her. She's going to work on history. She's going to make history, not history makes her. an unbelievable. In these words, the Rav sees this. V'ata b'ni shema b'koli. My son, I know, number one, I know you're not going to like it. I want you to listen. And number two, it's telling us Rivka is the one who is conducting the entire story. She's in control of the entire story. Go on to Pasuk Tes. The next words are that's Pasuk Tes. The next Pasuk, the next 4 words is the linchpin to the entire story, and it's crucial to understanding Rivka's message to her son. Lech no el hatzon. Translate those words for me. Lech no el hatzon. Please go to the sheep. What does that mean? Please leave the base medrash. There are times where you leave the base medrash. She knows her son is Yoshev Alolim. She knows her son is sitting in Shem Va'ever as Chazal depicted, right? He's sitting in the base medrash. No, today you're getting up and you're leaving the base medrash. There are times when you got to close the Gemara and you got to go fight. You got to win the battle. Lech no el hatzon. Rivka is so determined that Yitzchak is going to give Yaakov the bracha. She says, you close the Gemara now. You're going to come back to it. We're not closing it forever, but for the moment. There are moments in life where we need to be active and proactive. Rivka realized that if Judaism was to write off, as the Rav calls it, the street, quote unquote, Lech no el hatzon means I want you to go into the street, into the field. Yaakov, what?
Like that song.
That, but not only that, yes, but he's saying Lech no el hatzon versus Yoshev el alim. There are two, right? Do I sit in the base medrash yomam v'layla only, or no? Lech no el hatzon. I want you to conquer the economic world as well.
It's also
The financial world as
it's also
well.
different from hunting wild animals. I mean,
That's
sheep are
correct.
domesticated.
That's correct. That's correct. 100%. 100%.
Or commerce, if you will.
Yes, Esav cannot be given what Rivka is saying to Yaakov is a lesson for a lifetime. It's not only this story, it's a lifetime lesson. You can't hand over the financial domain to Esav and say, hey, I'm going to sit in the base medrash, let the world run as it's run. No, there would be a time that would come, as the Rav writes. And this is what Rivka is telling Yaakov. You're going to have to uproot yourself. You're going to have to come to a new society. You're going to have to live in a new society. How are you going to deal with that new society? If you're not prepared to deal with it, you're going to fail. He would move to a new land. How would he know how to take part in the land and in the field? Rivka was teaching Yaakov, quote, go now to the flock and learn how to go out into the field, the Rav writes. Learn how to struggle for the dew of the heavens and the fatness of the earth. You got to struggle for it. Do not allow Esav to rule over it at your expense. You're to be a part of it. By doing this, Rivka was teaching Yaakov an important lesson. The field, if you will, is not impure. The world is not impure. We're not tamei tahar. The world is tamei, we're tahar. No. Yeah, there's a difference between kadosh and chol. But what she was teaching him, when you bring your Torah values into the field, what do you do to the field? You elevate it. Put another way, the late Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said it best. He said, Torah can contribute to every human discipline in the world. We have what to say on everything. Torah has what to say on everything. We have to be bright enough to know how to apply the Torah. Torah is not over here, the world is over here. No, we believe in a unification. We believe that Torah is going to comment on how the economic world runs, how the technological world runs, what's mutter, what's asur, what's ethical, what's not ethical, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. That the Torah has in every human discipline. I heard that personally, Rabbi Jonathan Sachs said to us, to a group of rabbis here, when he came to visit on one of his occasions, and we had a meeting with him. He says, guys, the Torah is not limited. The Torah is massive. It has a comment, it has an observation, it has a direction for every discipline. But there's one more lesson Rivka was teaching Yaakov. Esav never found peace of mind in the field. His encounter with the field didn't work for him. The work did not satisfy him. He returned from the field ayef, right? Go back to 25:29. Let's take a look back at 25:29. Chof Hey, Chof tests. Page 126. The Yozed Yaakov Nazid. Yaakov was cooking dinner, right? Vayavo Esav min hasodeh. V'hu ayef. What's ayef? Ayef is exhausted. There are two words to talk about when you've worked hard. Ayef v'yageya. Yigia means constructive tiredness. I put in a full day, but I feel I accomplished. That's yigia. Yigia kapecha kisochel, right? Ashrecha v'tov lach. At the end of the day, you're tired, but I put in a full day. I accomplished what I was supposed to do. What's ayef? Ayefut is you're tired because you're exhausted because you accomplished nothing. Yesov comes back. He is Esav dreams. He has dreams to conquer the field. He's proud of his brazenness on the one hand, but on the other, he's beaten by his own conquests. He has a tiredness, like he hasn't accomplished anything. And Rivka is teaching Yaakov a lesson. Your brother Esav goes out. He's a very charismatic and powerful personality. Yes, but he's empty spiritually. This happens because it's totally defined by the education that the Rav calls it Ish Sadeh education. He's the Ish Sadeh. He has an Ish Sadeh education. It's singularly focused in the Rav's words. Whatever is above and beyond the Sadeh is irrelevant in such an education. In such an education, there are no norms. You don't teach the child that in certain situations there's restraint necessary. That's not taught in the Ish Sadeh education. There are no boundaries. Everything's mutter because you're to conquer the world. But guess what? At the end of the day, you're ayef because your life is spiritually devoid of any spirituality. Rivka, however, knows that Yaakov will infuse into the field a kedusha. He will transform the field into a source that will create joy for him. Yitzchak did not think this could happen. Yitzchak believed Esav would be able to accomplish an elevation of the field to Kadosh. She didn't realize who her players were. He was worried. Yitzchak was worried that if Yaakov is given the bracha of Yiten L'cha Mital Hashamayim Mishmani Haaretz, that it will spoil him, and he won't remain in Ish Yoshev Ohalim. He won't know how to do it. It was Rivka who proved her husband wrong. So continue. Now go back to Toldos. Then, okay, to our pasuk. So what does she say to her son now in pasuk? Lech no el atzon v'kach li misham shnei gida'ei izim. Why shnei gida'ei izim? And the Rav points out, based on the Medrash, the two to teach Yaakov a lesson. One is the Sa'ir La Hashem. That's that which God gives you. Then the other is the Sa'ir La Azazel, that which you use for yourself. I want two Gediaizim. You're going to have two. You're going to learn the lesson of how to conquer the field and make the field a holy place. Continue on to Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vayomer Yaakov el Rivka imo, and Yaakov says to his mother, Hene Savachi Ish Sa'ir v'Anochi Ish Chalak. 1 second, Mom. Esav is a hairy guy. I'm very smooth. The Rav understood Yaakov arguing with his mother not just because he's physically smooth and Esav is hairy. Rather, he was noting that he's nothing like his brother. Esav was interested when you say Sa'ir, he's hairy. That is a poetic way to say he's interested in power, in violence. While Yaakov, he's smooth. What you see is what you get. There's no cover-up, right? What you see is what you get. Esav, there's a cover-up. You have to pull it away to see who he is. Esav is interested in power. He's interested in conquering the world. Yaakov says, I'm not interested. I'm smooth. I have no interest in this bracha that you want me to get. I'm smooth. Why do I need this kind of a bracha? And Rivka understood what Yaakov did not. Whoever would receive this bracha would inherit the covenantal destiny. He would be the successor to Avraham. That's what's going on here. That's why she didn't want to give it to Esav. Esav can't get this no matter what. That's what's happening in this pasuk. Now jump to pasuk Chavches. The Rav takes us now to pasuk Chavches. Now the bracha. And go in and get the bracha. And what's the bracha? V'yitein lecha Elokim mital hashamayim umishmanei haaretz. Right? The bracha was totally different than the bracha Yaakov personally pursued. Yaakov got a bracha. Yaakov took a bracha away from his brother. He purchased it, of course, at the very beginning of the parsha. What bracha was that? He took something away from his brother. He purchased something at the very beginning of the parsha. What was it? What? The right to be the Bechor. What's the right to be the Bechor? The one who serves in the Beis Hamikdash. The Bechor was supposed to be the Kohen. Oh, so that's what he's doing. He's purchasing the right to be in the Beis Hamikdash. That he understood. That is what he wanted. He wanted the bracha of being the Bechor because he wanted the Beis Hamikdash. He wanted the Yoshev Ohalim. This kind of spiritual blessing wasn't what Yitzchak was giving. Yitzchak wasn't giving that bracha that he took away from Esav at the beginning of the parasha. This bracha is about the blessing of the physicality in the life. That's physicality. Yitzchak felt this bracha wasn't for Yaakov. It would spoil Yaakov. He thought that such a bracha belonged to Esav, who was the epitome of physicality. He thought Esav was guided by a morality of the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach. He says, my son is at least a moral young man who follows Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach. That's what he thought of him, of Esav. Rivka realized, first and foremost, okay, sorry, let's continue on. So we'll finish the shir quickly. Rivka realized that first and foremost, Esav was not a good person like Yaakov, like Yitzchak thought. She saw clearly who Esav was. Yitzchak thought he's going to observe the Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach. That's why she so opposed Esav receiving the bracha. In our day and age, it's like seeing the evil that we see clearly. We see the evil in the Gaza war. We see everything as it is. We see black, we say white. That's exactly what Rivka saw. Esav was black, Yaakov was white. That's what she saw, good and evil here. And that's what her husband did not see. But there's something else also happening. She realized that when you bless Yaakov with physicality, he will elevate the physicality to a davar shebekdusha. Esav would not be able to do that. She believed that the Torah teaches that man combines the spiritual with the physical. In the words of the Rav, man is both a metaphysical as well as a secular being. The Torah takes man's mundane activities and it hallows them. One must work 6 days, but then he hallows the seventh to God. He abstains to raise oneself spiritually on the seventh day. To the poor, we must give 10%. Disciplining ourselves to withdraw, to give away, is part of our service of the Almighty. Without Tal Hashamayim, Yaakov could not absorb this vital lesson. It's a fusion of physicality with spirituality. And that's what she believed only Yaakov could achieve and Esav couldn't. Now go to Pasuk Lamed Gimel. Vayecherad. So what happens here? Oh, Vayecherad Yitzchak Charodo Gedolah. Suddenly Yitzchak is shaking. He's trembling. What's going on? This can mean either that Yitzchak was struck with enormous fear, or the alternative position, Rashi suggests that it doesn't mean he was struck with fear. He was so caught by surprise. It's like you're caught off guard. It's like the light bulbs suddenly go on. Yitzchak was caught totally off guard. He now realizes he was absolutely wrong in his assessment. Esav isn't the one who should receive the bracha. Rivka is right. I'm wrong. She sees what I do not see. Whether it means fear or surprise, what did Yitzchak suddenly realize? The Rav explains that Yitzchak now, for the first time, realizes Esav cannot fuse physicality with spirituality. He cannot be in the place of the Ohel of Avraham and Sarah. Their Ohel had the levels of Kedusha of a Beis Hamikdash. And a Beis Hamikdash, you don't bring a sword. You don't bring destruction. Ish Sadeh is not welcome in the Ish Ohalim. And Ish Sadeh is not welcomed in the Ohel of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. There is no room in that Ohel where you bring death and destruction into its confines. And that's what Yosef did. When Yosef came in for Yaakov to get the bracha, Yaakov quickly realized, oh my God, it's Esav that represents that which can't be in the Ohel of Avraham and Sarah. The entire Ohel, if you will, when Esav walked in, the Ohel trembled. He doesn't belong here. Esav's presence was the destruction of the Mikdash. And that Yitzchak only realizes now. He wakes up to this awakening, and that's the Charodah Gedola. Finally, what is the difference between the brachos between Yitzchak and Esav? Yaakov and Esav both get a bracha. Take a look in Pasuk Lamed Tes. Yitzchak gives Esav a bracha too. Pasuk Lamed Tes, Chosayin Lamed Tes, Vayan Yitzchak Avi Vayomer Elav Hinei Mishmani Haaretz Yeh Moshavecho Mital Hashamayim Me'ol. He gets a bracha, but the Brav pays close attention to the two different brachos. V'yitein lecha mital hashamayim u'mishmani haaretz rav dagon v'sirosh. There you'll pay close attention. HaKadosh Baruch Hu plays a very important role in v'yitein lecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving the bracha. The promise that he gets back in Pasuk Chav Ches. Go back to Pasuk Chav Ches. In Chav Zayin, Chav Ches, where is it?
6:138.
Vayomer re'ei reach b'ni kireach hasadeh asher berecho Hashem v'yitein lecha ha'elokim. The Elokim plays a very important role.
Puts Mishmani Haaretz before.
Right, and here God's name is not mentioned at all.
It's not mentioned, but it's also flipped.
Right.
Mishmani
Yaakov's
Haaretz
bracha comes from Hashem. Esav's bracha is just a bracha of physicality without Hashem. Esav does not receive his bounty from the Almighty. Rather, his blessing comes from, you shall live by your sword. It's through Esav's personal efforts that will bring him bracha, period. It's not a fusion of spiritual with the physical. And that's the difference between the two brachos. A very important way to conclude the story. So let's wrap up and see what we learned. We learned, why is Rivka so determined, Rav Soloveitchik wants to know, to take this bracha away for Esav, because she sees that the stakes are enormous. What are the stakes? Who's going to be the next of the Avos? And it has to be a person who can turn the physical into the spiritual, a fusion of physical and spiritual together. That's number one. Number two, what's she teaching Yaakov for life? She's teaching Yaakov for life. Do not just live in the Beis Medrash. You got to bring the Beis Medrash out into the field. You got to carry the Beis Medrash out to the field. It's fascinating, by the way. Never have they had such demands. The Rabbanut HaTzva'it has never had such demands for Sifrei Torah as they have this battle. They send out, literally, I saw it with my own two eyes, they send out in an Aron, a Sefer Torah. They now have Miluim, reservists. Who are they? Sofrim. Have been summoned to come to the Rabbanut's Machaneh Tzvai to spend time correcting Sifrei Torah, because there is such a demand for Sifrei Torah that they want to send out kosher Sifrei Torah into battle. we bring the Torah into battle. We take the Torah and the field and we fuse the field with Kedusha. That's the lesson that Rivka teaches Yaakov. And what's the difference between the two brachos? The bracha that Yitzchak gives to Yaakov is V'yitein lecha ha'elokim mital hashamayim. That's the bracha that Yaakov gets. The bracha that Esav gets doesn't mention Hashem at all. Okay? All these lessons that Yaakov is being taught through these brachos. And Rivka becomes the most important person in this entire story because she sees where Yitzchak doesn't see. Everybody should have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
No wonder that there is the sinner between them
One second.
because he was jealous.